Hey y'all, it's Tim Miller from the Bulwark. John Kelly, Donald Trump's former chief of staff, has emerged from his secret lair in an undisclosed location somewhere in the world to speak out about what he has seen and what he has heard from Donald Trump during his time in the Trump White House. He did so in a conversation with Jeffrey Goldberg, who we've interviewed on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. Is worth going back and checking out if you missed it. And he did so in an audio interview with the New York Times. So I want to play some of the audio clips. The top line is probably Hitler did some good things. You don't usually hear that from politicians in America. Hitler did some good things. But apparently that was something that he said relatively frequently around John Kelly. Let's listen to this first clip from his interview, John Kelly's interview at the New York Times.
He would he commented more than once that that Hitler did some good things too, and of course, if you know history, again, I think he's lacking in that. But if you know what Hitler was all about, it'd be pretty hard to make an argument that he did anything good.
So what would you say when he said to you that Hitler did a lot of good things?
Well, I tell him that. I said, sir, if you first of all, you should never say that. But if you knew what Hitler was all about from the beginning to the end, everything he did was in support of his racist, fascist life, philosophy, so that nothing he did you could argue was good. It was certainly not done for the right reason. And but he would occasionally say that.
What would he say when you would lay that out to him?
He'd just, that'd be the end of the conversation usually.
I sometimes wonder what the efficacy of this is, because it's like you're trying to reach voters, right? And so I want to focus on the parts of this interview that I think are very practical. Because at times, John Kelly says some very alarming things. He says some things that should be quite alarming to people that are viewers of this YouTube feed. Never Trumpers, people who see Donald Trump clearly, people who are that share our alarm at the threat of a Donald Trump second term. The kind words for Hitler is on the list. That John Kelly thinks that he fits the qualifications of a fascist. The fact that he'd be a dictator if he wants to be. Like all that stuff is scary and alarming and worth marinating on. It's something we'll be obviously talking about in the last 2 weeks of this campaign. But if you think about the types of voters you're trying to reach, right? I do wonder if that type of warning, if they're hearing it, And so to me, I think, there's the whole "it could happen here" kind of thing, right? Like there's a reason there had to be books about and articles about how it could happen here, it being fascism, because there are a lot of people in America that just don't accept that. Right, that they refuse to listen. They refuse to believe that it could happen here, and so I think there are some other parts of the Kelly interview that I want to spend more time on, including why he won't actually endorse Kamala Harris given the threats. But there's some other points that he makes that I think might have more salience with people as they're weighing what to do in the last 2 weeks. And so I want to. The part that moved me the most of the discussion was this segment.
He's certainly the only president that has all but rejected what America is all about and what makes America America in terms of our Constitution, in terms of our values, the way we look at everything, to include family and government. And he's certainly the only president that I know of that was certainly in my lifetime that was like that.
He's certainly the only president that has all but rejected what America is all about and what makes America America in terms of our Constitution and in terms of our values. I think that's really important because Kelly says at another point in this interview that he actually agreed with a lot of Trump's policies. And I think when you're trying to speak to people that have voted for Trump before, like having that baseline, being like, this is a man that went to serve as his chief of staff. He was a man that implemented the Muslim ban. Let's be honest. I don't have not a lot of love lost here on the Bulwark feed for John Kelly. during his time at DHS, I think there were some unconscionable actions when he was Secretary of Homeland Security. But for him to say that he agrees with a lot of Trump's policies, but that he judges him fundamentally to be dangerous, but worse than dangerous, to be someone that has rejected what America is all about. John Kelly, somebody who served the military, who was a decorated general, whose son died for this country. John Kelly's like, this person, Donald Trump, rejects what my late son fought for. That cuts deep to me. That cuts deep. And that's not like throwing around these words that are hard for people to grab onto, like fascist or Mussolini. That is saying that just at a values level, this person, if we put him back in the White House, it is a abdication it is a rejection of America and of our values. It is a rejection about what has made this country so special. And to the Nikki Haley type voters, I don't know. I think that's something that might sit with them a little bit. I hope sits with them as they decide what to do in the last couple of weeks of this campaign. One more clip that I think is relevant because it isn't so much about these kind of ephemeral words and terms about the threat, but something actually tangible. And that is why Kelly spoke out recently.
And I think this issue of using the military to go after American citizens is one of those things I think is a very, very bad thing. Even to say it for political purposes to get elected, I think it's a very, very bad thing, let alone actually doing it.
So you're saying when you saw him say that recently, and as he said on the campaign trail, that was something that really concerned you to the point that you thought, as you sat there trying to figure out what to do, you thought maybe it's worth answering some questions about this.
Yeah, that's it.
So yeah, and that's Kelly just saying bluntly, this, like, the suggestion of using the military to go after American citizens is wrong in itself. Forget whether he'd actually do it. Just the suggestion, the rhetoric, it undermines the independence of the military and what the military is. And then the actual notion that he might actually do it. I mean, that turns America into an authoritarian country. It totally changes the nature of our country if you have a president sicking the military on domestic enemies within, on domestic foes. And that's a scary prospect. And again, I think that's a scary prospect that people can grasp. They're like, man, could he really do that? Could you? In that Atlantic interview, he talks about how Trump said that the Chinese would know how to tamp down protests, referring to Tiananmen Square where the Chinese killed protesters. That's something people can grasp. It's like, might Trump be the kind of guy that sends the military in to kill protesters? I mean, he almost did it already once. That's real. That's a real threat that I think is worth worrying about, and that might have some salience with voters. All right. Lastly, my nitpick. Nitpick would be a minor word. My strong complaint with John Kelly. I want to play the bit where he talks about why he won't tell people how to vote.
Unless you're someone like me or Mattis or people like that retired from the military or left the military, like Mark Esper or Mike Pompeo, and then go into a political job, whether it's elected or assigned by the White House, it's a little bit different because you're then involved in it. But for the most part, and that's why I'm so hesitant to talk. It's certainly never to tell or recommend to an American who they should vote for, because now that I'm out of the political job, I'm back to being pretty much a retired military officer who should not get too involved in this kind of thing.
Y'all, this shit is just too cute by half. It's like, well, I was a chief of staff, which is a political job, not a military job. Chief of staff to the president. But now I'm a retired military officer. Now I'm just a retired military officer, so I've got to act under the rules of retired military officers. Really? Why aren't you a retired chief of staff? Aren't you a retired chief of staff, actually? Because that was your last job, chief of staff. You took two civilian jobs. You were the head of the Homeland Security Department under Trump. So you're a retired cabinet official and a retired chief of staff, not a retired military official. I mean, I guess you're all of those things, but your most recent titles were all political. And so, like, the excuse doesn't make sense. And then the other thing is just like, why are you going all the way? It's not like people are stupid and can't notice what you're doing here by doing this interview to try to warn people about Trump. Like, the political motivations to do this 2 weeks before an election are not going to go unnoticed. So it's like, if you're gonna eat half the apple, eat the whole apple. I mean, if you're in the garden and you're being tempted, at this point, just eat the whole apple. Just go the whole way. All right? Just tell people that you think it should be Kamala Harris that is the president. But it makes it weaker. It makes it all seem a little bit more politician-y. For somebody who's trying to remove themselves from politics, it actually feels more political to like kind of play these games, these word games. So it's frustrating. And why not do it on camera? I mean, my colleague Sarah Longwell sent out a tweet. Why not do a press conference? I get this point. Why not do an interview? Like, where are you? Why are we doing this via secret recording? As if these are like tapes from the great beyond. Do you not have FaceTime or Zoom? Can we just see your face? Can you just give us a proof of life and explain why you'll be voting for Kamala Harris? Because obviously you're voting for Kamala Harris. So just fucking say it. So, that part's frustrating. Better for him to speak out than not. Some very serious and alarming revelations and warnings that I think are important, that I'm happy that he shared. Could use a little more, though. Could use a little more. All right. We're going to have a lot to discuss about this on the Bulwark podcast, on the Next Level podcast. A lot more to discuss about this on the Next Level podcast. So subscribe, tell your friends. Don't miss out on anything. We'll see you all back here soon.